like a Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for another Sega Saturn review, and today we're taking a look at another tennis game. This one, known as Virtual Open Tennis, came out in June of 1996 over here in the PAL region. So upon first hearing that there was a title known as Virtual Open Tennis on the Saturn, I instantly thought, is this a precursor to Virtua Tennis made by Sega, obviously several years before? I didn't know at that point in time it's made by Acclaim, and it is of course not related to Virtua Tennis in any way, shape or form. So of course we're going to do what we always do. We're going to take a look at how it looks, how it sounds, how it plays, what kind of lifespan it's got, whether it's worth playing today, and if it can make our Sega Saturn top 10. So sit back, relax and enjoy my review for Virtual Open Tennis. So once the title screen is done, you'll see you've got Exhibition, Championship, Training and Options. Heading into Options, you've got some pretty standard settings. You can choose whether you want replays on or off. Markings AB or AB off. This relates to where the tennis ball is going to land on the court. If you want a marker on the court to see that, pretty useful in all fairness. You've got your normal stuff, sound test, voice test, music test as well. So like I always do, I'm going to talk about how the game looks first, and unfortunately Virtual Open Tennis isn't a great looking Saturn game. The character models are not particularly impressive. You have to remember that whilst this was a 1996 game over here in the PAL region, it came out nearly a year before in Japan, so it is actually quite an old game. So those character models are kind of blocky, chunky looking, not particularly good. The animation on the game isn't that impressive either. It's got this jerky feel to it, and it just feels a bit Yankee in the way the characters move. It's not particularly impressive. The courts, they're quite bright and colourful. You've got a hard court, you've got a grass court, and you've got a clay court, and they're visually fairly appealing, I suppose. In all fairness, the actual arenas don't really differ too much, but overall in the looks department, it's not that impressive. So moving on to sound effects and music, and you will probably have noticed that the game has music playing over the top during the matches, which helps quite a bit in all fairness. Breakpoint from last week had nothing, and the game felt quite dead and silent because of it. This, on the other hand, benefits from having music. The game feels more alive. It really does. It helps it in that regard. Unfortunately, the sound effects aren't particularly good. I don't feel they're that high in quality. The voiceover chap as well, he doesn't sound very good. The one from Breakpoint, I did genuinely feel it gave the game an authentic feel. This being an arcade style game, it just doesn't sound great overall. I don't really think there's anything that positive to say in all fairness about the sound effects or music within this game. So moving on to the way Virtual Open Tennis plays, and I've said this before with other games, as bad as a game might look, as lacking as a game may be in the sound department, if it plays a great game, it can be saved. There are numerous examples of this on the Saturn. One that springs to mind is Mysteria Realm of Law. It's not a good looking RPG. It's not particularly great in the sound department, but it plays fantastically well, so you can enjoy it. Unfortunately, Virtual Open Tennis is lacking in the gameplay department as well. In fact, it's probably the weakest aspect of the game. Now, the game has all the standard controls you would expect from a tennis game, moving your character around, chip shots, smashes, sliced, topspin. You can pull off all those shots, but unfortunately, the controls are jerky and Yankee, and they just don't feel that natural, and it's very, very frustrating to play. Another thing that can be difficult is judging where the ball is going to bounce, especially if you're at the top end of the screen. The game becomes much more difficult when you're up there, and you have to rotate between being at the bottom of the screen and the top. There's no way to change the camera view, so you're at the bottom all the time. It makes the game far harder. Doubles gameplay as well. Now, talking about Breakpoint last week, I said that your doubles partner was pretty much useless. They didn't do anything. They'd let shots go past you. On this game, it's the complete opposite. Your doubles partner will be whacking back shots completely unrealistically over and over with the CPU. Now, I take into account it is an arcade tennis game, so it is completely unrealistic in the way it plays, but it is a little bit crazy as well, and I don't particularly like it. I like the authentic tennis gameplay with kind of like an arcade atmosphere to it, and I feel Virtua Tennis really is the pinnacle of that. So in the gameplay department, yes, Virtual Open Tennis is not great. So moving on to content and lifespan, you head into exhibition, you can choose between singles or doubles, you can choose between a 1-player game, a 2-player game, or the computer facing off. You can choose the number of sets, 1, 3 or 5, and you've got 3 different courts to play on as well. Moving into the character selection screen, you'll see you've got 10 characters. They're all male. It displays their nationality, their age, and what style of player they are. So as well as your standard exhibition matches, you've got 2 main modes of playing: the Championship mode, the Challengers Cup, and the Imagineers World Championship. These are basically competitions where you play through as a character each match and try and win the trophy. It's pretty standard stuff. And you've also got a practice menu, which is pretty useful because you can go through that practicing different kinds of shots. You can also play a little tin can game where you're serving to try and hit as many cans and get as many points as you possibly can too. So whilst I might have made it seem like there's a bit of content within the game, there isn't really that much. 3 courts isn't much, so it doesn't mean there's much variety every time you're playing a match. 10 characters, yes, they're all male, but there's not really a whole lot separating them in all fairness. It doesn't really add anything to the game. Exhibition modes get pretty dull because you're never going to have a 2-player partner to play them with. No one is going to want to play this game because it doesn't bring any enjoyment. Practice mode is very, very minimal. You're only going to spend a few minutes on there and never ever return to it. And because of the way it plays, bringing little enjoyment and lots of frustration, you're probably not going to have the perseverance to try and play through a whole entire cup. So in the lifespan and the content department, yes, this game doesn't do very well there either. So of course that leaves us with our 2 final questions. Is Virtual Open Tennis worth playing today? And does it make our Sega Saturn top 10? Well, you can probably guess my answer to both of those questions. This game is not worth playing at all. It doesn't bring any enjoyment. It's frustrating and annoying to play. Does it make our Sega Saturn top 10? Well, obviously not. It's never ever going to get anywhere close to anyone's top 10s unless it's worst 10 games on the console. It may well feature in that list, and it actually got me thinking, should I come up with my worst 10 Sega Saturn games list at the same time as coming up with my overall top 10? I kind of think that might be quite interesting to do. If you think that might be a good idea, let me know in the comments down below. But that is it for today. Another dismal Saturn game out of the way. You have to remember that for every 1 good game on the Saturn, there's probably 10 to 15 bad ones in all fairness, and this is one of those games. What are your thoughts on Virtual Open Tennis? Is anyone out there someone who's actually had a bit of experience playing this game? Did you actually play through it enough to complete one of the trophies? I would be interested to know, so let me know down below. That is it for today. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll be back in the near future with another Saturn review. Goodbye for now.